You did not start your business to feel stuck in it, right? This podcast is about creating the time freedom to enjoy a life as delicious as the business you're building without the guilt. I am Shalise Daniels, a certified mindset and business coach, 7-figure business owner, and here we explore how neuroscience-backed rest strategies are essential for growing your business. What made me move to Costa Rica? How did I do it with running a business? It was out of necessity. I needed a break. COVID was during that time, and I remember my mental health was declining. I was tired of driving up through and around Michigan. Michigan, the Upper Peninsula is not, yes, it's full of wilderness, but I can't say that it's necessarily one of my favorite places to be. I needed to get to somewhere outside of the United States. Took a look who was accepting American passports because at that time, a lot of American passports, we were United Statesians. Passports were not allowed in certain countries, and I booked Costa Rica. Here I am. I believe it was actually a 3-week vacation, not a 4, but I extended it to 4. I put some systems and processes in place, and I said, what can I do to extend this one more week? I was not ready to leave. The spaciousness that I felt, it was unlike anything else. I don't think that I had spent that much time in nature, that much time being greeted by the monkeys and the trees. Lipstick palm is what they call it. I wanted to do anything that I could to keep that feeling going. In that effect, I extended it by one more week. I did whatever was needed to be done to do that. The plan was to come back after that one additional week, which would have been 4 weeks total. 3 weeks we spent on the Pacific side in Uvita, and the other week I spent on the Caribbean side in Puerto Viejo. I did not want to go home. When I went, there was some political unrest with people scaling the Capitol building. The day after I got back, I took some clothes out, washed them, and went back, scheduled a flight to go back the next day. I want to say they scaled the Capitol building on the 6th or 7th, and I was back in Costa Rica by the 8th. I didn't have anywhere to stay. I was essentially homeless, but I used those WhatsApp chat groups and found somewhere to stay for another 30 days. 30 days by 30 days is how I extended my trip all the way through May. All the while thinking of what can I do? How can I make this possible such that I can put systems and processes or hire people in place so that I can continue to live this lifestyle until my body felt ready to return. That was the plan. After the 4 weeks, I tweaked the systems that didn't work or needed a little help, and I hired and delegated more, because if I wasn't there, I needed to have innovative or creative methods of ways of getting things done. And that's exactly what I did. One thing that I put in place was a virtual inspection. Instead of going on site and doing the inspections, I would do it virtually. I also had a process in which our call center, they called into our maintenance center, and they were able to triage what needed to be done and sometimes fix the issue over the phone, whether it be a light bulb or some clog that can be done by the tenant or whatever the thing might be. I became very innovative because I wanted to enjoy this life as much as possible. Lastly, by being free, what this freedom provided me was, one, I just vegged out and stared into space and went to the beach as much as possible, ate really good food on the Caribbean side. And it allowed me the freedom and the space to come up and see what needed to be done in the business, how we could drive more income in different ways or optimize what we had, skim the fat, change things up instead of day-to-day dragging and dropping work orders to people, managing the clients, talking to them, so on and so forth. I was able to bring my attention to other places, and that's when in 2021, by this time, I hired 3 additional people. The question is, what travel did for me? What travel did for me? The more I lived, the more I wanted to live. We may think that things are not possible because we haven't thought them all the way through, or we thought about vacationing in the traditional sense. I was able to rent a house owned by someone that was living locally for a fraction of the price of what I would need to pay had I gone through Airbnb. The more I lived, the more I wanted to experience this life, the more it became possible on my terms, as opposed to what my limited experience told me it should or could be. It opened opportunities that I didn't realize existed. I met people who had other experiences. Now, get this, I had never really lived outside of the city of Detroit. I had a child young, I married young, and I stayed in that community. I had never really lived out of the city of Detroit. I traveled, sure, but I never lived outside of the city of Detroit. It's a difference when you live somewhere versus having traveled somewhere. Doesn't matter if you stayed there 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever. It's a different experience. This experience allowed me to meet people and understand their different perspectives on another level, because you live with them on a daily basis, not just the locals, but the other folks who were exiting their respective countries and coming here. And it seemed like it was something that was happening a lot at the time. It allowed me to be more creative. It just opened up this space where I wanted to create. I wanted to do kickboxing. I wanted to dance. I wanted to do more yoga. I wanted to express myself in ways that I hadn't expressed myself in a long time. And that creativity opened up parts of my brain that allowed me to problem solve in my business a lot more than I had been. I don't know if I would attribute that to being outside of the day-to-day, or if it was just a combination or series of things that made me become a better business owner. It made me want to become a better business owner, but it also made me want to have a better life for me, a different and better life for me. I remember having a conversation vividly in which I went to breakfast with a friend, and after breakfast, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Absolutely nothing." We went to the beach, and at the beach, we talked about what we wanted our lives to look like, or how we wanted our lives to look. And she mentioned she wanted to live location independently, or have a life of location independence, something like that. And what that meant was she wanted to work from anywhere, live from anywhere, not have her life be dependent on being at a certain place at a certain time. And I had never even thought that before, that was possible for me. And possibly because the constraints of what I had seen. So when you see something different, you can be something different. And often that's where it stems from. I got distracted by the horizon. Like, I don't know, there was a feeling. The question is, imagine how much more effective my move could have been had I planned it. I think about how intentional I could have been with everything that I learned and all of my experiences. Had I planned to move or leave for 5 months in January, I would have specifically thought of things that I wanted to put in place in the business, things that I wanted to see, how I wanted to see the business progress. I would have been able to analyze, use analytics based on numbers. How is this improving? Why did this improve? Just so many things, and even lifestyle, like a happiness meter or something, but I didn't. And it still turned out to be an incredibly valuable experience. And it lends to a number of other incredibly invaluable experiences. My friend that I'm telling you about that I was at Cocoa Beach with on that day, she also said that she wanted to own a compound. Well, at that time, she had allowed her mind to dream that far. I had not even allowed my mind to be location independent. Didn't think about having a compound or any of that stuff. Well, she owns a resort at which I held a retreat at last year, which is her compound. Because not only does she own that resort, she owns all the land that is behind it, like several hectares, and some land across from it. Brilliant, huh? Wow, yes, I have some land that I'm building on, a small retreat center. Think of how much farther I would have been had I done it right then. My husband, David, always said, "When is the best time to plant a tree?" I'm like, "Oh," he said, 20 years ago. I'm like, okay. And then he'll say, "Next best time to plant a tree is now." You found a space where thriving is the standard. If any of this resonated with you, make sure you subscribe and share this episode with someone who you know needs to hear it. Join me in Hustle Culture Recovery, where we're resting, thriving, and growing with ease. Everywhere at Coach Shalise D. On Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You might even find me on Facebook under Shalise Daniel. Going out to get what we deserve. Living into the reason why we created our businesses to begin with.